this year, with the theme of Tailspin, students will tell their story by working in groups to come up with the most creative storyboard, which will then be accessed for creativity and story flow.
So what's it all about? First of all, it's learning how to storyboard skills, incorporating our literary component, and we also have moral values involved as well. Everyone's going to win a pizza just by taking part, and it's all about creativity and teamwork. So this is for lower secondary, forms 1, 2, and 3, and upper secondary 4, 5, and 6. Now this is very important. Participation is only through school. Getting started, you need a group of 4 or 5. You brainstorm on a moral value. Now the moral value will be the one that is going to take you through the whole story, because it has to be running in and out of your story. As a team now, decide, are you going to submit 2 storyboards? Are you going to take part in the video clip, which is optional? And we're going to talk about all that. And then you delegate responsibilities, and I'm going to give you the deadlines that you have to meet. These are all the things that you must have in your tailspin. First of all, the plot. The plot is basically the storyline, the story that you're going to work on. And then we have the characters. Now, characters, we are talking about, not more than 5. You cannot have too many people running around in your story because, there are only 9 frames for you to come up with your story. And then you also need to have crossover characters. It's very interesting where you have some character from somewhere else turning up in your story. Moral value or moral values, you can have more than one value running through your story. Because it's a storyboard, you have your pictures, your illustrations and all that, and you will have to narrate what's happening. Right? Because there are only 9 frames, you have to tell a story as well, not only just in picture form or illustrations, but to tell us in narration form. Your last frame has to end with a cliffhanger. There has to be a background placed there in your template that says the plot so far. So what happened before you're introducing the story to us on Storyboard? We want to see something happening stage by stage. All the people that are going to appear in your storyboard should have a character write-up. Your crossover character can come from books, or you can even get it from TV or Astro. With only 9 frames to work with, it's quite impossible for you to put in a lot of information in just picture form. So we are also getting you to come up with narration. And you want to come up with speech bubbles and thought bubbles inside your frames. Go ahead. Include moral values, because you can have a few moral values running through your story. A cliffhanger is basically a suspenseful situation. Those of you who watch all these serials and stuff like that on movies, you have to watch the next one because the last one ended with a cliffhanger. So, suddenly, you see, you have this person walking into the room with a face of shock. Oh, and then it ends there. What did he see? You end on a cliffhanger, and then if you're called to the grand finals, you have to finish the story in the finals. Please don't plagiarize other people's work. So don't go and get somebody else's storyboard and then draw it yourself and everything else, is copied. Now, rewards. For 1 personal pen-sized pizza, how many do you need to do? 1 storyboard. So you get 1 pizza to yourself, but it's an upgrade. So from this size to this size, all right, you need to do either 2 or more, but minimum 2, or 1 storyboard and 1 video. You have to understand that last year we had 60,000 entries. I've included the primary because they'll be doing the grand finals together with the upper and the lower secondary. And then, this is where it becomes fun. You end with a cliffhanger. And if you're called, to be one of the grand finalists, you come in and in 5 minutes, you give us the ending. So after you have finished acting and given us a fantastic ending, then the judges will ask you questions. We're sending you off to Hong Kong Disneyland. Yeah, look at how happy these winners were. So this was the team who tried for 5 years. And for the top Woo! 5th year running. Let's give a hand, please. Thank you.
This is a tennis ball, and I'd like you to look at it and to remember it. I'll be coming back to it. I also would like you to look at the visual over here. I'd like you to make a mental image of this. Keep it, and I will be going back to it later as well. So we have tennis ball, Snoopy, typewriter, sheet of paper, opening sentence. It's good at the beginning, before we talk about the technicalities of storytelling and storyboarding, to remind ourselves, and perhaps as you are reading the question, you're already formulating an answer, because this is what a question does. A question is like a tennis ball you throw up into the air. At some point it will have to come down. So it's always a good technique in storytelling to use questions, to plant questions in the reader's, the viewer's mind, as I'm doing right now. Storytelling is basically about things happening. So whatever it is you're going to be doing in 9 frames, we would like to see a lot of things happening. Don't overdo description, explanation, things like these. It's a sequence of events. And it also reminds us, this definition, that things can be fiction and non-fiction. In the non-fiction world, we have different types of stories you're familiar with. Right, you tell anecdotes. People travel. They don't just travel, they travel to share their experience and will come up with a story afterwards. It's not just about you personally enjoying the trip to Bali in this case. We have books, novels, literature, movies, newspapers, and then there are the whispers. You will have to remind yourselves, I have a good story, but I have to tell it well. The first one, you know, characters. You need something to carry the story, and the characters will do it for you. We would like them to be strong. We would like them to be interesting. We would like them to engage, to be like fleshed out, have substance to them. Screenwriters will do it before even the first episode is canned. They will write up the characters. So it's a good idea, as you work on your own tailspin submission, that you have a good idea of who the characters are and what they're supposed to be doing for you in order to illustrate, let's say, a few moral values. All of them come with 2 things: a special quality, a talent that makes them interesting. And the other thing is they want something. So when you think through a character, or you want to choose a good crossover character, you have to sit down in your team and think, what does this person want? And what is going to make this person stand out? Perhaps a particular strength, a talent, could also be a weakness. And what we're going to do with these characters is we're going to throw them into a conflict situation. Remember, Snoopy, something has to be happening, right? But more often than not, I'd like to think of conflict as any kind of obstacle in the path of going from one situation to a next one. So people want things, but there's other people that may want the same thing. They may want to grab it from you, and perhaps people may want to prevent and stop you from doing so. So character and conflict are the 2 things you need in order to get your story moving ahead.
When we talk about a plot, it's literally a chain of events in a particular sequence. I would like you guys to apply what you see on the screen here, which is called the story mountain. It's literally like scaling a hill or a mountain. Okay, so from the foothill, you're climbing up, okay, and the suspense probably builds, and eventually there's some kind of a problem or a conflict. That's the turning point, literally. What's going to happen next? Okay, now there are many, many possibilities. So what's the path that you are going to take? There's a resolution, and then you end the story. Now, when we talk about a cliffhanger here, it's a scene that is seemingly impossible. So you have come to the climax, and now you're leaving your audience. Okay, your readers, you're leaving them literally dangling. What's going to happen next? And that's why everyone waits for probably the sequel. And make sure this is incorporated, which is literally mandatory. So these are the things that judges will be looking out for. Your climax can be any one of these that you see on the screen. Now, you have to incorporate something creatively, okay, and something that would make the judges, that would wow the judges, okay? Try to be different, generating ideas. To get you started, because the possibilities are endless. You can start from anywhere, literally. Okay? Now, how do we actually get started? Is we start looking at a theme. What I'm sharing with you at this point in time is these are some very, very popular sayings, or probably cultural norms, if you like. Okay, you could anchor your story on honesty, it could be believe in yourself, it could be any one of these, or probably more that you know of. And once you have roughly an idea of what the story is going to be, on, now this whole entire thing serves as it gives you a sense of direction, basically.
The storylines, the possibilities are just infinite, astronomically high. So you need to make choices, and one way of doing so is to think that the words and pictures are actually supported by underlying ideas. And one way of approaching storytelling is thinking of it as a way of communicating something. It's not just you and your team that's working on something. You have to visualize or imagine a situation where you're going to tell the story in a here and now setting to people that might be interested. And in order to get you to select from the millions of ideas and possibilities that one pathway that will get you to a successful story, then you have to answer 4 questions. First, it's not you and me and you exchanging stories. We have to have something in common. So you're looking for commonalities between you and your audience or your readers. Next, and I'm using the image of a power drill. So you're not just interested in the drill, the story, but what the drill can do for you. And that will be drilling a hole in a wall, let's say. So stories have certain functions. What do stories do? At the end of the storytelling, people will know more. But you would also like to engage on an emotional level, so you would like people to feel something. This can be entertaining, this can be emotional in the sense of people are moved or touched by your storyboard, by your story. And the last one is you would like to motivate people into action. So this is doing. So it's about knowing, feeling, and doing. And these are the things that you would like to accomplish. And then when you sit around and you get all your ideas together, you're going at some point to make a transition to what you can actually tell in, let's say, 9 frames, or in a 60,000 word novel, or in an episode of The Big Bang Theory. This will help you to remember this. So in the top left-hand corner, you see finding the we. It's you and me, and you try to connect with your audience. Right below, you see that red arrow, which is actually signifying where is the story going to take me. Especially in advertising, you would like to get people to do things. And then the cloud stands for the millions of ideas you're going to generate within your team, and you're going to select and then visualize, externalize some, and that's where we meet the storyboard again. And this brings us, I guess, to storyboarding. It's a technique, it goes back to the 1930s, which was used by Walt Disney originally. Sketch down things, as in the following example, already showing particular camera positions, camera angles, and it's actually a planning tool. Rather than just going in and getting your hands dirty and doing things, you're going to sit down and think things through. I'm rounding this one off with something in the corner over there, which are actually post-it notes. The ideal form of doing storyboarding is to keep every frame separate. You may not have time today, but later on when you work on your submission, consider cutting out the frames. And as you work from ideas about your plot development, you can start moving those frames around, especially as we want you to start in the middle of the story. So even though the team will be brainstorming the whole story, you're going to select. Now, what's the best selection? What's the most effective selection in order to get your point across? And the post-it notes, for example, allow you, as you can see, if you have different color ones, you can have different characters, a different color, and you can start moving things around. So this is one of the main advantages of using this technique. We're looking at original ideas, which are also meaningful within a community. The idea of creativity is not to put yourself outside. So when we work with students only a bit older than you and we do creative work, there is always a stage in which they try to be as crazy as they can. But we would like you to keep your eyes on your audience and on your community as well. So be original and meaningful. And we have 6 action steps. If you just think that creativity is going to happen to you, it may not come. You have to have as many ideas. In order to get the right one, the original and meaningful one, you need to combine ideas. What happens next? Evaluation and selection. But you also need a template to, at the end of the day, externalize your ideas. The last stage in being a creative person is building acceptance. And I think the first person you need to convince would be your school teachers that this is really wonderful, because they need to they actually need to make that first selection. As you work on your project, make sure to build in brain breaks, because during the time you're not actively working on a particular creative assignment, your brain will give you the answers. The first couple of stages are done on your own, analyzing the task, getting the first round of ideas. And then you progress, bouncing off your ideas in a pair. And only then you enter a group. Because if you're in a group, people might actually stop you from voicing your ideas. And perhaps you think my idea is not as good as your idea. So in order to be fully cashing in on the creative value of all the team members, you may want to divide the tasks in terms of ones and pairs and groups. Remember the 5 characters. The brain is kind of lazy, so we can't deal with more than 5. That's why in the Big Bang Theory we have 5, 1 crossover, the meaning is clear, cliffhanger, 1 or more moral values. And then we'll be judging the creativity as well, looking at the story, and then the artwork. You don't need to be a fully accomplished visual artist as long as the sketches are clear and you have some kind of originality in how you're going to make the story a visual one as well.